A millennium earlier, a great chasm split the earth, releasing terrifying creatures that spread chaos across the land. Meanwhile, enormous structures emerged from the ground and destroyed the attacking demons, giving people a renewed feeling of hope. Ever since that time, people began to receive unique abilities from the monuments, granting them the strength to resist and defend themselves. With each increase in strength and level, the group gradually pushes the monsters into the depths of the abyss, steadily winning back their territory. Despite everything, those vile creatures continued to hide in the darkness. The empire established its provincial capitals where the 9 monuments stood and started holding a yearly ceremony to assign jobs. Through this tradition, high school students became the primary defenders battling the monsters. The job transfer ceremony was also scheduled to begin soon at the city monument branch. The principal opened the ceremony by delivering a speech, informing everyone that the monument would determine their future careers. They would have to decide if they would become a fighter or choose a peaceful trade, knowing that whichever path they took, they were expected to serve their country. The queen's human-like form prevented her from being able to bear children. The students began to tease their classmate, who remained fast asleep despite the significance of the occasion. With a reputation as the laziest student in the school, everyone doubted he would awaken any valuable profession, let alone a life-type one. Their laughter grew as they guessed he would probably end up with something like the Sura beast tamer profession. Despite everything, there came a day when Archive stood frozen in fear, witnessing it unfold before their eyes. After journeying through another world, he had at last arrived at this long-awaited day. A young man, sporting a hairstyle reminiscent of from Attack on Titan, approached Tin and inquired about the career path he hoped to pursue. Tin responded by sharing his ambition to obtain either an S-rank talent or uncover a hidden class. As soon as he finished speaking, the classroom erupted with laughter. The other students reminded him not to set his sights too high, pointing out that he had only managed a C on his most recent aptitude test. Tin accepts the truth, yet deep inside he remains optimistic, believing he might achieve another unbelievable success. He had already succeeded in leaping from his previous world into this new one. The ceremony's host announced the name of a student to the gathered audience. Dong was called up to the stage. The group of heroes shatters any remaining sense of pride his mother once held. The group subjected her to cruel amusement, violently assaulted her, and tore at her body. He discovers that he has become a warrior by profession, and at first, excitement fills him. His enthusiasm diminished slightly upon discovering that his power was classified as rank C. The teacher calmly explains that achieving a rank C is impressive compared to most people, and instructs him to visit the Lynch and City Guild Center, where experts will help him develop his unique abilities. Several appealing girls became enthusiastic about his job, referring to him as handsome, despite the fact that his appearance was less appealing than that of a garbage can. As he looked over his shoulder at the group, he accidentally collided with the boy. He added an insulting comment, expressing surprise that someone he considered the lowest in the class had bothered to come that day. Found himself encircled by the boy's rude friends who pressured him to apologize. Despite their demands, remained firm, holding his head high and refusing to back down. He silently questioned how Wan Dong, who had always picked on him for no apparent reason, could possibly awaken as a member of the warrior class. Despite having the upper hand, Wan Dong felt cheerful and decided not to prolong the harassment. With a quiet chuckle, Wan Dong turned and left, convinced that Tin's future would amount to nothing significant. At last, Tin's name was announced, and it was her turn to step onto the stage. He quietly wishes for any job related to fighting, secretly thinking he would accept being a mage or even taking on a supporting role. Feeling anxious inside, he rests his palm gently against the surface of the monument. Archive's soul moved quietly, careful not to be noticed. The unexpected event left all those in attendance stunned. Starts to question whether he has just achieved something impossible. As the brightness diminished, it became clear that his true occupation was that of a summoner. The job was generally regarded as one of the lowest and least desirable professions. The students couldn't help but laugh right away, since the outcome matched what they'd all predicted. Even though the lesson was supposed to be about fighting skills, the expenses involved in training monsters were so steep that hardly anyone chose to take it. At that moment, his host instinctively stirred to life, causing a digital system interface to materialize before his eyes. He announced himself as an Abyssal Lord. The message further explained that with every 10 levels he reached, he would receive a randomly chosen triple S-rank talent. This means that upon reaching level 100, he will earn a total of 10 talents. His initial ability reveals itself without delay. The ability known as Demonic Sacrifice enabled him to trade a portion of his own maximum health in order to rapidly increase the level of his summoned creature. Through this ritual, the creature would also become demonized, receiving otherworldly strength drawn from the infernal realms. He realizes that his maximum health is going to decrease for good. As a summoner, he could stay safely behind the front lines, letting his summoned creatures handle the battles in his place. Later on, he would be able to gather gear that increased his maximum health, making it easier to use his abilities effectively. The display included a message clarifying that whenever someone gave up 100 points of their maximum HP, the creature they called forth would increase by 1 level. He examines his own statistics and notices his health points total 1,000. Realizing this, he figures that by giving up 900 of those points, the creature's level will rise to 9. Despite considering the possibility, he opts against acting on impulse and moves forward carefully. His teachers attempt to cheer him up, urging him not to feel discouraged. They reassure him that even if his chosen career isn't the right fit, there are always alternative opportunities he can pursue in the future. He pays close attention to what they are saying. After leaving the stage, the character moves through the gathered audience. The sword was ever present, and its power far surpassed that of others. Despite being aware that others viewed his chosen profession as worthless, he quietly promised himself that he would one day excel in it and rise to the top of the world. After about an hour, he arrived back at his house, finding his little sister freshly out of the bath. She wanted to know how his profession ceremony had gone. He explained to her that he had received the profession. This instantly causes her concern, as she knows that this class is often mocked and seen as worthless. He softly dries her hair with a towel, reassuring her that she doesn't need to be afraid, since her older brother is a far more powerful summoner than she realizes. At that moment, he notices a message from his class, letting him know that every student who has finished transferring is required to join the rest of the group right away. The students assembled in the classroom as their teacher announced that this round's results were impressive. According to the teacher, 5 students had taken on the role of warrior, 8 had become mage types, 11 were now support types, and just 1 student had been assigned the summoner role. He points out that Tin House class stands out as something unique. She handed him an introductory manual on how to become a summoner. Tears streaming down her face, she stepped outside. The teacher then addressed the class, informing them that the group had been summoned to gather information about the students who had already finished their job transfers. They stepped outdoors to take part in the job aptitude assessment. At that moment, Archive activated his ability and directed it toward her. The student who carries a staff steps forward ahead of the others. He launched his attack toward the device built to gauge fighting ability. The sword appeared to him as if it were possessed by a demon. The teacher offered him words of encouragement before inviting the next student to step forward. Advanced with assurance and launched his strike. He achieves a score of 89. The teacher, unsurprised by his accomplishment, commends his work and notes that he could be among the highest-ranking students in their grade. Confronted and urged her son to escape. He moved at a measured pace in the direction of the machine. He opened the heavy book his teacher had given him and started to recite the words of a summoning ritual. The Archive exposes his astonishment. Sword reassures Archive that he did not harm his wife. Instead, he simply caused her to fall asleep. Despite the summoning effort, only 1 slime appeared, bearing a striking resemblance to. The crowd immediately bursts into laughter once more. Even Tin found himself unprepared, his face falling with disappointment as he gazed at the small being before him. As he himself to destroy the Archive, The teacher quiets the room, directing all eyes toward the outcome of the test. She brought her sword down upon his blade, ending his life. He makes an effort to cheer Tin Ho up. Tin moved ahead and asked for an opportunity to try again. He wanted to test his newly acquired ability, Demon Sacrifice. The group burst into even louder laughter, ridiculing him and insisting that no matter how many attempts he made, even 1,000, the outcome would remain unchanged. Choosing to disregard the others, he sacrifices 200 points from his total HP in order to. She reaches down, grasps her sword, and lifts it confidently into her hand. At that instant, the adorable slime started to change, its shape morphing into something fearsome and monstrous. Archive recalled a tale that had shared with her in the past. According to that story, was an elf she truly belonged to that mystical race. The slime, now transformed by demonic energy, bore no resemblance to its previous form. The audience instantly grows quiet, caught off guard by the unexpected shift. After her son was born, she abandoned her pursuit of revenge. As Lisa began to lose awareness, Archive recalled this moment, and he, without noticing, tears began to stream down their face. Despite his intentions, the desire to seek revenge for the Demon Queen soon dominates his every. The group of students exchanged hushed words, unable to hide their shock as they realized that the class's lowest performer had unexpectedly outscored the usual top student. Dong's annoyance was obvious, as he silently wondered the same thing. She recalls that even Fang, the renowned war god, had achieved a score of just 101. The students began to point fingers at Tin, insisting that he must have interfered with the machine since his initial score had been just 9, but it had mysteriously soared to 120 moments later. Archive had matured, and he made his way to the academy following. The character moves closer, examining the machine with curiosity. Upon inspecting the object, he assures everyone that the machine remained untouched and simply suffered from a brief technical error. With confidence, he states that played fairly and did not break any rules. Won-don breathed a sigh of relief, comforted by the thought that there was no way the class outcast could surpass him. He wondered aloud about Tin's official score, prompting the other students to quickly reply that it ought to be a 9, since the machine had been working properly on the first attempt. Despite what had happened, the teacher informed the class that Tin's test score would not count for the moment, and that he would have to take the exam again at a future date. Hearing this, Tin was taken aback, realizing that his teacher was offering him an unexpected opportunity to try again. The students started to voice their objections, insisting that fairness required him to receive the original 9 points he had earned. The teacher, determined to restore order, quiets the class and declares the test finished for now. He explains that those who have not completed the exam, among them, will have another chance to take it after the machine is fixed. Ordered his followers to cease their bickering. He approached Tin directly, a sneer on his face as he made it clear that, in his eyes, some people would never rise above being worthless, no matter how many opportunities they received. He summoned his group and announced their plan to head straight for the level 1 Black Abyss, determined not to waste any more time watching Tin's repeated failures. Tin Hale overhears a reference to the beginner dungeon and makes up his mind to visit as well, eager to try using his demonized slime for the very first time. Once the others had gone, a group of skilled engineers came to fix the malfunctioning testing device. As they assessed the destruction, one individual speculated whether the school had given rise to another prodigy, since a student had managed to shatter the machine with just one blow. Later, while Tin made his way through the bustling city streets, an elderly man accidentally collided with him and then paused, peering at him intently. The observer noted that, based on his build, he appeared well suited for the role of a summoner. The man went on to mention that he possessed a high-quality summoner staff and proposed selling it for the price of 300 gold coins. Tin Hao glanced at the wooden staff with a look of disdain, thinking the old man was demanding far too high a price for what appeared to be nothing more than a worthless stick. The elderly man firmly maintains that he is willing to sell at this price solely because he feels destiny has led them to meet. To anyone else, he claims, he would refuse to part with it, no matter how much they offered. Tin grasped the staff, and a powerful energy instantly coursed through it, persuading him that purchasing it was the right choice. He reminded himself that finding gear for a summoner was uncommon in such a large world, so he knew he had to seize this opportunity. He decided to buy the item, but when he looked inside his pouch, he discovered that there were only 92 gold coins left. He courteously requests a reduction in price. The ragged elderly man takes the gold, agreeing to hold on to it as a down payment. He clarified that their fates were bound to cross paths once more, so this payment would merely hold the staff for now. The man vowed he would not let anyone else have it, and then assigned Tin a task. To earn the staff, Tin needed to descend into the depths of the level 1 black abyss and find a specific treasure hidden there. The man reassured him that upon reaching the bottom of the maze, Tin would know exactly which item to take. Tin comes to the sudden realization that he has already taken on a quest from a non-playable character, and this happens before the dungeon adventure even gets. The elderly man reaches into his belongings and produces a contract. Not long after, Archive attends a class. He applied pressure with his finger, using his fingerprint to leave a forced signature. He observes that Idly is the only one paying attention. Tin turns and leaves, his mood as heavy and drenched as a floating above him. Tin Ho's teacher approached the elderly man and offered a polite greeting, addressing him as Elder Fang. He explained that the testing device had broken down and the aptitude examination was temporarily halted, suggesting that Elder Fang should go back for the time being. Elder Fang responded with a nod. She then inquired whether he had any information about a boy called Tin. The teacher responded that Tin was among his pupils, mentioning that the boy came from a struggling background and had just discovered his abilities as a summoner. He observes that the boy appears fated to face many challenges in his future. The elderly man nods in agreement, remarking that the path awaiting the boy will surely be filled with danger. Tin arrives at the threshold of the level 1 black abyss. The place was referred to as the Cold Valley Abyss. He glanced at his device, noting that the dungeon only allowed groups of 3 or 4 people. The entry rules stated that only those between level 1 and 10 could go inside, and anyone who didn't fit those requirements would be eliminated by a being known as the Overseer. He tapped his finger against the shown on his screen, and saw that the highest rank belonged to a user called Fang Yen. Immediately following that moment, the information about the reward popped up, showing that the top prize was a beginner's. This piece of armor could be worn by anyone, no matter their profession, and it increased the maximum HP by 120 points. The sight of the reward caught everyone's attention. Archive corrects him, explaining that enchantment magic, not alchemy, was used. Just then, a young man sporting a hairstyle reminiscent of Sen wearing a scarf much like So arrived alongside his group. With a sly grin, he turned his attention to, ridiculing him by questioning whether someone known as the class underdog truly planned to take on the abyss. He burst out laughing, suggesting would save himself from shame if he simply stayed home instead of making a fool of himself in front of everyone. Tin, wearing a stern look, warns the others to stay out of matters that don't concern them. Su pointed out that the dungeon could not be entered alone, as it needed a minimum of 3 participants. Noticing Tin's bravado, he decided to put him to the test, questioning whether Tin could even make it past the entrance. Wine Dawn lifted his arm and proclaimed to the crowd that their group included 1 C-rank warrior and 2 E-rank mages, inviting anyone who wished to join forces with them to step forward. The moment he began talking, students quickly surrounded him, all showing excitement at the chance to become part of their team. Since no one volunteered by raising their hand, he chose to single out. His supporters proudly discussed his impressive power and revealed that this time, he was determined to secure a spot on the. They moved closer to the portal. Casts the restoration spell, putting its magical effects to use. The sudden event left the new recruits paralyzed with terror. Without warning, he becomes aware of something unusual about. Heeding the warning, the group moves forward and passes through the portal together. Idly becomes damp as she carries out the spell. He silently judged Don and his crew, convinced they were corrupt beyond redemption. In his mind, he questioned whether the recent additions to their team would survive the ordeal. Even though revival is possible, it comes at a steep price, stripping them of many of their abilities. Because of this risk, he chooses a more cautious approach to stay alive and steer clear of any fatal mistakes. At that moment, his screen lit up, displaying his statistics. A student nearby happened to notice that Tin had an S-rank skill, which immediately sparked his interest in forming a partnership with him. Still, several other students soon reminded him that Tin was a summoner, and they argued that even with such a high-ranking skill, it would not greatly benefit the team as a whole. Upon receiving the new information, the student begins to question his previous choice. A cluster of loud and disruptive students. A girl known for her bard class and her E-rank talent caught their attention. They ridiculed her, claiming that only those with at least a D-rank could offer useful support to a team. Tin observes her intently, noting the look on her face that suggests she has spent multiple days in this spot, still unable to join a team. He approached her. He reached out his hand, proposing a partnership. He revealed his goal of making it onto the, and admitted that, so far, everyone else had refused to team up with him. Despite her skepticism about his chances of reaching that goal, she still finds herself captivated by his appearance, unable to hide her admiration. Despite her initial hesitation, she ultimately decides to join him. Extending her hand, she grasps his, silently signaling her agreement to work together as a team. Once inside the dungeon, Tin reminded her to be careful, knowing he would be occupied battling the monsters. Her pulse quickens and an unmistakable warmth glows in her gaze as she notices the sincere worry he has for her. With only one more person required, the group stood on the brink of entering the portal, nearly prepared for the journey ahead. He immediately addresses the topic, questioning whether she prefers solitude due to her situation. The group pleaded for permission to become part of her team. The girl, known as King, was gifted with level abilities and carried herself with a serene, distant grace that brought Shen from impact to mind. Moving forward with composed poise, she ignored the group, her demeanor revealing she considered them bothersome and beneath notice. While surveying her surroundings, she spotted Tin among the crowd. She immediately identified him as the student known throughout the school for his low ranking, and briefly considered the possibilities if she chose to partner with him. Without a moment's pause, she moves confidently toward him. Everyone stood frozen in shock. Wondered aloud, questioning Archive about the source of his knowledge regarding her condition. Tin remains motionless, uncertain whether he truly understood her words, as the rest of the boys seethe with envy, baffled by the idea that a goddess would want to be with someone they consider beneath her. With just a piercing look, she quiets everyone around her, then asserts with confidence that her team has already been selected, making it clear to the others that they should step aside. She started to make her way toward the glowing portal. She casually wonders what Archive intends to do for her, given that he already admitted there isn't a cure. She responds with composure, explaining her goal to reach the top of the. To do this, she requires 2 carry-ons. If she manages to take both all the way to the number 1 spot, she believes that no one will ever underestimate her again. Tin paused to observe her, reflecting inwardly on how their group had ended up with someone who acted like royalty and looked down on them. They entered the dungeon. They soon realize they are enveloped by swirling snow and an intense, freezing chill. Tin soon notices that his clothing, designed to protect against the cold, fails to keep him warm in the harsh environment. Archive pleads with her, insisting that choosing him during the selection is the only way to end her pain. She starts strumming the strings of her instrument, her fingers moving confidently across the frets. She surrounded her teammates with a gentle warmth, shielding them from harm. King noticed her efforts and remarked that she was proving to be somewhat helpful after all. They ventured further into the depths of the dungeon. A teacher mentions to her that standards have declined in recent years, ever since the war with the demons came to an end. Sutsing quickly moves to the front, taking charge of the situation. Her form slowly started to change. She shifted into the form of a spirit beast, resembling the way Kerr changes into her state in One Piece. As her aura grew stronger, she sprang toward the wolf, moving swiftly and gracefully, fully prepared to attack. Delivered 2 powerful strikes to the corrupted wolf, his attack slicing deep into its flesh. Blood poured from the wounds, and the creature eventually collapsed, its strength fading away. She collected large amounts of gold for every successful strike, and explained with composure that her actions were meant to express gratitude to her teammates for surrounding her with kindness. When she hears the name, the headmistress realizes that Archive is actually the child of the heroes who disappeared. In just a few seconds, 3 additional wolves come rushing in their direction. King dashes forward on his own, leaving the others behind. Vicious confidently claims superiority over his opponent. This time, a scratch appears on her arm as she fights. Understanding that defeating them by herself is a real challenge, she refuses to give up, her determination unwavering as she stays focused on her ambition to climb the hurried to help by suggesting a basic healing spell, but King declined, explaining that the weak magic wouldn't do much to restore her health. She recommended that save her mana instead. She retrieves a healing potion, intending to heal herself without any assistance. Despite her spirit sinking and her gaze fixed on the ground, found comfort as Tin offered gentle encouragement, his reassuring smile lifting some of her discouragement. The group pressed onward, venturing further into the depths of the dungeon while keeping a vigilant eye on everything around them. They move ahead together. King moved forward and positioned himself within the intricate patterns of the alchemy circle. The confrontation unfolded as a duel. Without warning, an enormous object started plummeting in her direction. She manages to retreat at the last possible moment. The headmistress announced to everyone that advanced spells were not allowed to be used in the duel. It had a reputation for being incredibly challenging to manage. Stared at the creature, disbelief written across her face, as she questioned how such a powerful hidden monster could show up in this section of the dungeon. Meanwhile, carefully observed the scene and concluded that King had likely provoked the monster by defeating an excessive number of wolf monsters earlier. The monster suddenly lashed out with its staff, catching off guard and landing a heavy blow while her defenses were down. In an attempt to manipulate Archive, Vicious reveals his past military experience, enduring severe wounds, while the creature itself to strike once more. Reacted instantly, calling forth his demonic slime and directing it to unleash a sinister dance against their foe. Just as the creature prepares to attack King, the tiny slime swiftly darts around its massive form. She arrives at the last possible moment, making it to her side before it's too late. Vicious suspects that Archive is attempting to conceal the truth behind a deceptive, as the haze and debris gradually cleared from the air. The creature notices that King has vanished from view, understanding that its opportunity to catch him has slipped away. The headmistress immediately identifies the method that Archive employed. Ten quickly instructs to bring King to a nearby secure spot and start tending to her injuries, while he prepares to confront the monster alone. As the tainted zombie lifted its staff once more, readying itself to attack Tin, he swiftly directed his slime with a brief instruction. The creature lunged ahead. The creature launches a glob of slimy spit through the air. Aiming to disrupt the creature's attack, the character focused their attention squarely on the monster. The slime launched a sticky glob toward the monster, while Tin directed it to move in a lively, circling pattern. Just as the creature begins to react, the monster quickly swings its staff and successfully strikes the slime. Tin's concern grows as he notices the creature's tough defenses, and it becomes clear they are inflicting only half as much damage as they had anticipated. He quickly realizes that the slime spit is beginning to dissolve sections of the monster's flesh. Upon this realization, Tin swiftly adapts his approach. Vicious grew furious when he realized that Archive had turned his own technique against him. The slime, following instructions, bounced energetically from place to place, leaving behind a trail of sticky residue. The character grabs hold of the monster's ankle, refusing to let go. Stands within the reach of the impending strike. Archive found himself with no choice but to activate his demon eyes, known as the Thousand Wry Eyes. King slowly blinks awake, her eyes fluttering open. Tin stood his ground with courage, refusing to back down. Tin studies the foe with sharp focus, and notices that the creature's lower half is more vulnerable than the rest. He directs his slime to concentrate its assaults on that spot. Wearing a sinister smile, the slime leaped once more. Corrosive slime bursts forth, coating the monster's legs as the acid rapidly eats its way across the surface. It starts consuming the creature's body. In a matter of moments, the creature's body begins to break down, its form disintegrating as it crumples to the earth in defeat. Glanced at his monitor and noticed a fresh alert pop up. The message revealed he had advanced to level 2 as a result of overcoming an opponent with a higher rank. His eyes flew open in surprise as she questioned whether every summoner possessed the strength to defeat a monster with just one blow. Remaining composed, clarified that most summoners did not have such overwhelming power. Tin stood out as someone extraordinary, and it was both astonishing and frightening to witness how he overcame an elite monster relying solely on his sharp mind and quick decision-making. Tin spun on his heel and strode over to King, wanting to make sure she was okay. His gentle inquiry about her well-being showed genuine concern. As King looked at him from up close and noticed how much he cared, she felt her heart skip a beat. She averts her gaze and insists it is only a minor wound, assuring everyone that there is no reason for concern. Proposed that the group pause to rest, noting that her healing abilities worked too slowly to support them if they kept battling without a break. Kin bristled at the suggestion, firmly maintaining that taking a break was out of the question if they wanted to claim first place on the. The secret began when she was just 8 years old, remaining hidden from everyone around her. She accidentally bumped into Tin, who steadied her with a firm grip. With a collected demeanor, he reminded her that risking her life would make climbing the meaningless. King hesitated briefly before silently showing her agreement. He glanced around the area, then proposed that the group rest in a nearby cave before moving on. As darkness settled in, the group spread their futons beside the glowing bonfire, preparing to sleep. Tin mentioned to him that he would step outside and stand guard for the night. Drained from casting healing spells, quickly drifts off to sleep. Tin glanced over at Ching, suggesting she should rest too while he headed out. As he reached the door and was about to exit, Archive then reveals a tool designed specifically for practicing the emission of mono energy. Archive lazily considers pouring mana into the mana ball, imagining what would happen if he kept going until it shattered. Feeling a flush of embarrassment, she hurriedly lay down and tried to dismiss her words, hoping he would ignore what she had just said. He let out a quiet laugh, reflecting that she truly embodied the qualities of a sun deer. Her words could be biting, yet beneath them lay a gentle and caring nature. As he stepped outside the cave, he observes that mana glows white, a rare type known for its ability to adapt to any form of magic. A smile spread across his face as he noticed the progress. Archive soon realized that he had discovered something special, since Idly offered him an effortless opportunity to take a risk. He chooses to spend 400 points, allowing his slime to advance through 4 additional upgrades. He carefully marks the points onto the surface. The slime's level increased, and several of its other attributes improved as well. Simultaneously, Tin Hill gains access to a new ability known as Split. She gazed at him with a blank expression, as if he had just suggested she battle a fearsome dragon. In order to experiment, he instructed his slime to activate its splitting ability. She observes the creature splitting apart, forming several identical copies of itself. He takes in his surroundings with swift, attentive eyes. Once she had left, Archive disclosed that Idly's illness was, in fact, an adjunct. Tin examined the status screen that floated just above the slime. He notices that the effect is temporary and will disappear after just 3 minutes. He feels a sudden jolt of surprise and questions whether he could possibly make a difference with so little time. Without warning, screams echo out from the cave, catching Tin's attention. This alone is sufficient to hold her attention. He arrives. He discovers that neither of the girls are present. The character found themselves confronted by a fearsome creature called the giant snow rabbit. Tin quickly gave an order to his slime, urging it to launch an attack. The character attacked the creature by hurling a glob of slime at it. She held on to the hope that a day would come when her life would be ordinary. This unexpected turn of events catches him off guard, filling him with a mix of astonishment and mild worry. He casually mentions that she can explore her own body if she wishes, while he remains nearby upon noticing that the level is 8. Concern washes over them as they realize they might be facing an opponent far beyond their abilities. Even though fear lingers in the air, his confidence does not waver. With a dismissive wave, shrugs off the threat, insisting it is only a rabbit and treating the situation as if there is no real risk at all. Without warning, the rabbit darted directly at Tin, its movements unexpectedly swift. The slime responded by launching bursts of slime. The monster easily avoided the attack, twisting its body in a smooth motion to slip past them. In the blink of an eye, she materializes beside the slime. With a strong burst of energy, it launches the slime through the air. Without hesitating, the rabbit rushes forward in pursuit. They continued to attack without pause. Disgust twisted his features. Anger simmered within him, persistent and undeniable. Sensing that things were taking a dangerous turn, Tin swiftly ordered the slime to retreat and start its demon dance, coordinating the move with as they prepared their own slime assault. Despite everything, he remains resolute, unwilling to let any human draw him into their amusements ever again. At that moment, he notices a sound coming from one of the students. Stared in astonishment, struggling to understand how any creature could move at such incredible speed. King explained that this was considered one of the most cunning monsters in the region, and mentioned that numerous groups had already fallen to it in the past. Despite her efforts to make sense of the situation, she could not grasp the reason behind the creature's sudden aggression, particularly since none of them had crossed into its domain. The observer realized the student was affected by a magical enchantment, yet the slime's demon dance ability was still unavailable, as its period had not yet finished. He examines carefully and discovers that the magnetic pull is coming directly from. The rabbit lunged ahead, delivering a powerful blow to the slime. The impact rendered the slime unconscious, leaving it utterly helpless. Turns away, unable to continue watching the scene unfold. Once he had left, Archive turned to and insisted on receiving an explanation. Admits that her illness impacts both herself and those close to her. Someone raised their voice in an attempt to draw its attention. The creature's gaze shifts toward her, its attention now fixed on her presence. The creature shifted its attention from the slime and began to stomp toward her, its enormous paws thudding against the ground. As it drew nearer, at one time, went to see a girl who was meant to become her friend. She tossed a tiny carrot in the direction of the monster. Much to the astonishment of the group, the menacing beast suddenly halts. Lowering its head, it inhales the scent of the small carrot. The creature's face shifted in an instant, and it started cheerfully nibbling at the food, acting just like a normal rabbit would. Tin Hao and the rest stood frozen, their faces filled with disbelief as they struggled to make sense of the sudden events. Once the rabbit finished eating the carrot, it darted toward the group with renewed speed. The demon queen struggled to suppress her violent instincts, determined not to harm anyone. Tin realizes that their current strategy will not keep them safe forever. Determined to end the threat, he makes up his mind to lure the creature into a trap and eliminate it once and for all. He urgently instructs to toss the bag toward King. She immediately obeys his command, showing no sign of doubt. He explained that his family vanished, and afterward a group of nobles took him in as their own. She begins to change, her features gradually shifting until she resembles a feline. Turns to Archive and inquires about whether he has any relatives. As the creature rushed toward them, she sprang nimbly from side to side, effortlessly evading each of its strikes. She wondered aloud about the moment he would feel prepared to leave. He instructs her to guide the rabbit closer to the wall. King casts his eyes toward the wall in front of him and swiftly deduces the intentions forming in his mind. Clutching the bag of carrots in her hands, she races quickly in the direction of the wall. Right before colliding with it, she quickly veered to the side, yet the rabbit couldn't keep up and collided headlong with the wall. A stray rock tumbled down and struck the creature on the head, causing it to stagger in a bewildered and stunned state. Tin recognized an opportunity and ordered his slime to emit a bright glow. The slime wasted no time, instantly activating its ability to divide itself. However, he appears to be restraining himself to some extent. When the rabbit's eyes flutter open, the creature comes across two slimes instead of just one, with one positioned ahead and the other directly behind. Both slimes launched their assault at the same time. The fox ruthlessly attacked the rabbit until it was badly injured. In the end, they managed to overcome the creature. They made their way back to Tin, who paused in silence, a hint of worry flickering across his face. As he reflected on the recent battle, he understood that, despite their victory, facing a rank 6 monster had been a tremendous challenge. His slime abilities appeared ineffective when facing individual opponents. Keen folded her arms, expressing her frustration over being used as bait. Tin offered an apology, clarifying that she had been the only person quick enough to catch up to the rabbit, which made her the one he depended on. Upon hearing this explanation, she felt her cheeks grow warm with embarrassment and her earlier protest. Attempting to steer the conversation in a new direction, she shifted the fault onto, claiming that the carrots had brought were what attracted the rabbit. Responded by explaining that she had simply believed bringing along dry food would be useful. As she prepared to return the leftover carrots to her inventory, Tin House intervened, preventing her from doing so. He explains that their victory over the rabbit has earned them 120 experience points, marking their greatest achievement to date. He goes on to propose that by attracting additional rabbits and defeating them, they could increase their level at a much quicker pace. He explained to the group that the only way to complete the dungeon was by overcoming the level 10 Lord. To have any hope of victory, everyone needed to reach a minimum of level 4. After assessing their current abilities, he figures they must defeat at least 5 additional rabbits to hit their goal. Her voice tinged with concern, wondered aloud whether they would truly be able to overcome another rabbit, given how difficult it had been to defeat the previous one. Offered her reassurance with a steady voice, explaining that although they had been the ones chased in the previous battle this time, they would be the ones pursuing their enemies. Ting nodded in agreement with his plan, explaining that she was determined to reach thee, and couldn't spare any more time in that place. According to their strategy, they arranged a trap by leaving a carrot just outside the mouth of their cave. They crouched behind a massive boulder, remaining perfectly still and quiet as they waited. It doesn't take long before an adorable rabbit spots the bait and begins to approach. The moment it draws near, the two hunters spring from hiding and successfully capture the animal. Through persistent repetition of the same actions, the group succeeds in gaining experience and increasing their levels in just 3 hours. Tin achieves level 5, while both Ting and progress to level 4. A digital display materialized before the group, revealing that merely 5 hours had elapsed since their descent into the abyss. Felt a rush of excitement at how rapidly their level had increased, realizing it surpassed all her expectations. Nodded in agreement, pointing out that Fang had spent 8 hours conquering the dungeon yet still managed to secure the highest spot on the. Upon hearing the news, begins to consider the possibility that their team could surpass the highest score. Despite this hope, King voices her worries, pointing out the difficulty of the challenge. She cautions the group that the final boss still awaits them, and defeating it will prove far more difficult than any of the previous monsters they have encountered. Tin reflected on the information from the guide, noting that the ultimate adversary was the leader of the roaming zombies. This formidable foe possessed the power to direct corrupted wolves along with other wandering zombies, organizing them into coordinated group assaults. He expressed concern to the others, warning that the upcoming battle would be challenging and might stretch on for almost 2 hours. Upon hearing the suggestion, the group collectively decides to pause for a brief rest, allowing themselves time to regain their energy and get ready before facing the upcoming fight. They walked indoors, with Tin putting her abilities to use. He used his HP to make his slime stronger. As he continued, he observed that the amount of HP he gained with each new level after defeating enemies was beginning to diminish. The improvements had lost their previous impact and no longer worked as well as they once did. This information revealed to Archive that his own Demon Queen held the title of the 13th Demon Queen. Without warning, a powerful blast echoed from outside, capturing everyone's attention. The trio hurried out of the cave together. They were taken aback when an unfamiliar creature emerged in front of them. A secret adversary appeared, a unicorn with a formidable level of 10. Tin peers intently at the object and comes to the startling conclusion that they have unintentionally caused a secret boss to appear. Archive is aware that, had the demon army discovered the hidden truth, they would have kept battling relentlessly to shatter the seal. The unicorn lifts its head high. With a series of elegant movements, its eyes started to shine with a mysterious light. They alone possess this secret, apart from Archive, who has managed to recover the fragments once held within and soar. In order to make the most of their time together, the two wandered leisurely among the food stalls, sampling treats and savoring the relaxed atmosphere. Right at the moment when he prepares to take a step off the edge and face the sheer drop beneath him. The slime, sensing danger, suddenly panicked. In a swift motion, it lunged ahead and clamped onto his leg with its jaws. The sudden interruption jolted him back to awareness, breaking the trance he had been under. He was jolted back to awareness. Tin glanced about the area and noticed that both King and were present. They, too, remained influenced by the same hypnotic trance. They moved gradually toward the brink of the hill, mirroring his earlier steps. He immediately springs into action, relying on his slime companion to help him rescue them. She quickly moves him to a secure place, ensuring he is out of harm's way. As King's awareness returns, she quickly understands the danger before them. Her gaze fixes on the figure ahead as she identifies it as the secret boss of the abyss, though she is puzzled by its unexpected presence. Meanwhile, still uncertain about the situation, wonders aloud if the leader of the wandering zombies was not meant to be the true boss of the abyss. King revealed that while the main adversary at the end was unmistakably the zombie leader, there existed another, more secretive foe. This hidden opponent carried the title of the Guardian of Life. The creature emerged solely when an excessive number of weaker monsters in the region were killed. Because the group had been hunting the rabbits, their behavior was likely what lured it out. She explained that although their plan was to overcome several bosses before advancing further into the dungeon to face the final boss, they had unexpectedly encountered a hidden boss with far greater strength and higher stats than the one they were preparing to challenge. Flaming chains bound the demons, preventing any chance of escape. His eyes filled with tears as she confessed her fear of dying, her voice trembling with desperation as she pleaded for any possible escape from the looming battle. Tinhel regarded her with a steady gaze and calmly revealed that, due to the countless rabbits they had overcome, the hidden boss had already set its sights on them. Now, there was no longer any chance for them to run away. Tears streaming down their face, was filled with regret, wishing they had never gone beyond the wandering zombies, believing that everything could have been avoided if they had just stopped there. Tin placed his hands softly on her shoulders, offering comfort and assurance through his gentle touch. He explained to her that their progress was thanks to her assistance, and now their dungeon completion time surpassed that of over half the teams on the. He explains that the only thing left to do is conquer the boss and complete the dungeon. He assures her that he will protect her from the unicorn. King, who had been standing close by, heard his words and moved forward with resolve. Without a hint of doubt, she braced herself to confront the unicorn, prepared to put all her strength into the battle. She eventually becomes overwhelmed by her desire, unable to restrain herself any longer. Tin swiftly notices that the creature is getting ready to strike, prompting him to urgently warn the girls to move apart. The girls barely manage to retreat in time. The unicorn rushed forward with a cost of 4. The forceful blow shatters the rock into pieces. The demon queen wept in solitude, her tears falling because loneliness was her constant companion. Immediately following that moment, the unicorn unleashes a different ability. It was known as the soul-cleansing melody. A cold, eerie sound reverberated through the air, causing shivers to ripple through the crowd. At Tin's signal, softly recites the words of a lullaby, her voice weaving through the quiet air. The response to the melody successfully disrupts its flow and lessens its influence. The unicorn grows furious, its demeanor shifting to one of intense determination. The creature dipped its head and rushed straight toward. The creature lunged forward, its horn poised to strike her, but at the final instant, King dashed forward just in time, intercepting the oncoming blow by seizing the creature's horn in his grasp. She delivered a forceful kick to the unicorn, sending it stumbling backward. Without delay, action was taken. She spun around and broke into a sprint, hoping her actions would draw the creature's attention away from the rest of the group. While racing forward, she leaps onto a raised platform. Archive insists that Idly reveal all the details about her life to him. Before can completely evade, the beast also springs upward into the air. The unicorn plunges its horn into her back. She collapsed to the floor, writhing in agony, while hurried to her side to tend to her wounds. The events played out before their eyes. Tin's face shifts, adopting a look of solemn determination. He glanced down at his slime companion, feeling a sense of responsibility. Believing it was finally their moment to prove themselves, especially after failing to protect, he resolved that they would not let anyone down this time. The small creature made of slime. The entity had advanced to a higher level earlier. A sudden burst of spit shot forward with such strength that it forced the unicorn to stumble backward several paces. Stared in disbelief, struggling to comprehend how an ordinary slime could force such a formidable beast into a corner. Tin, maintaining a composed demeanor, clarifies that unicorns typically have a vulnerability to dark-type powers. However, he confesses his surprise at the unexpected abilities of his own slime. There had been a breach of information, prompting strict orders to eliminate all traces except for sparing a single child. The slime relentlessly launched attack after attack against the unicorn, never giving it a moment to rest. At last, the monster decides to flee, spinning around and darting away. From that moment on, she never encountered them again. Her father later explained to her that she was going to be enrolled in a regular school, so she could experience an ordinary life. The slime displayed just as much boldness and personality as Tin did. If she failed, she would end up with her other siblings, wherever they had gone. Eventually, it manages to overtake. Upon witnessing the scene, Archive understood that Idly had been manipulated, and recognized that she herself was the sole survivor remaining in the facility. As the group starts to believe that the fight has finally ended, the unicorn rose to its feet once more without warning. A surge of resonating sound bursts forth from them. The noise grew so overwhelming that everyone instinctively pressed their hands over their ears to block it out. Tin observed the situation carefully and noticed that the unicorn had set its sights on the slime. Acting quickly, he instructed his pet to evade the attack and use its splitting ability. Believing it has found the true slime, the unicorn lunges ahead and drives its horn straight through the target. He doubted he would ever be able to feel love for her. The object divides itself, creating two versions that are exactly the same. The unicorn itself to charge at the slime, hooves poised for a powerful stomp. Tenhel concentrated intently, signaling to his pet that they needed to end the battle in less than 3 minutes because time was slipping away. The monster lunged forward with all its might, crushing one of the slimes beneath its massive foot. With a powerful motion, the creature hurled the object skyward. Immediately after, it brought its hoof crashing down on the next target. They soon discovered that what they had caught was merely a duplicate. The actual slime had been launched into the air. He preferred to keep ordinary people away from his beloved daughter. It wasted no time before unleashing its corrosive, slimy goo. The substance coated the creature's body, searing its flesh and forcing a pained cry from the unicorn. Archive had trained Idly so thoroughly that she now eagerly anticipated the reward she would receive whenever she obeyed his every demand. He quickly signals to his slime, urging it to fall back. The slime made its way back toward him. Tin becomes aware of an unusual occurrence. During class, Archive sat at his desk while Lick suddenly burst onto the television screen. He lowers his gaze, focusing on the earth below the creature. He suddenly stops, unable to move. He remained certain that no one could discover the truth, as he had meticulously erased every clue and left nothing behind. He steps into the headmistress's office and discovers that a visitor is there, expecting to meet him. Hurried to join her, determined to bring the conflict to a close. Sensing that something was wrong, Tin attempted to intervene, but he was interrupted before he could say anything. He extends his hand toward Archive, expressing that meeting him is an honor. She lowers it with determination, then stands above her conquest, pride swelling within her from the triumph. Despite her cheerful expression, her smile gradually disappears when she catches sight of something she hadn't anticipated. Tears shimmered in the unicorn's eyes. She hesitates, uncertainty flickering across her face as she tries to decide whether the creature before her is truly weeping. Without warning, the unicorn released a powerful noise that caused the ground and everything nearby to tremble. It appeared that Frugal had been the one to send it to Lise, since he alone had offered his blessing for their marriage. Frugal reacts with astonishment upon hearing the news. A huge boulder suddenly plummeted from above, aiming directly at Tin. He proposes that they go for a walk side by side. The slime darted after him, stretched its mouth open as far as it could, and gulped the entire boulder in one swift motion. Much like how consumes flames. The headmistress stood in the room, a reminder of her past role as his teacher. The character rushed forward to prevent Tin from being trapped beneath the falling debris. She suddenly understood just how perilous things had gotten. Tin beckoned to the group, urging them to gather around him. Archive was certain that his presence at the school was due to idly selecting him. Stood at a greater distance. Archive wondered aloud about the reason Frugal had chosen to attend the academy. She moves in his direction, gradually closing the distance between them. The slime began to swell, its form stretching outward until it resembled an oversized balloon. Enveloping the group, it created a sturdy barrier that guarded them from the rocks tumbling down from above. King glanced around in bewilderment, struggling to understand the chaos and questioning the reason behind the crumbling surroundings. Tin paused in thought before revealing that the boss had passed away, causing the magic sustaining the dungeon to begin unraveling. He surveys his surroundings. He spots a second massive rock teetering above, ready to crash down onto the unicorn. Frugal was aware that both and Sword lacked the ability to wield demon eyes. People understood that demon eyes could only be inherited through family bloodlines. The clone darted toward the unicorn with swift determination. The being arrives beside the collapsed creature at the crucial moment. The object became protected as massive rocks crashed down around it, forming a barrier against the relentless downpour of debris. Archive wondered aloud if the boy felt any curiosity about his grandfather. King glanced around the area, wondering to himself how things had become calm so quickly. They moved closer to where the unicorn lay on the ground. Tin reveals that the unicorn's blood possesses the power to heal, and as it seeps into the earth, it starts repairing the destruction left behind by the falling dungeon. He claimed that every victory he earned in battle was due to his 1,000 sharp, watchful eyes. King remained alert, her concern growing that the creature could recover and attack again. She urged the group to end it completely and escape the abyss without delay. However, Tin House intervened, preventing her from taking further action. This situation leaves her feeling confused. Light silently admitted to himself that there was something strange about the unicorn. Tin keeps a careful eye on the creature, observing its every movement. The character attempts to grasp the message it is conveying. Without warning, the unicorn emitted a fresh, anguished cry and started twisting in pain. King's patience wore thin as annoyance built within her. She lifted her claw, poised to unleash an attack. Yet again, intervened, requesting that she be patient for a bit more time. The unicorn staggered backward, its strength fading. Without warning, a force struck outward from within the creature's stomach. The source of the struggle revealed itself as a baby attempting to emerge, and all the agony the creature had displayed was actually caused by the process of giving birth. Even with this understanding, King's body remained rigid, her anxiety clear on her face. She revealed her worry that the boss could return to life, emphasizing that she had to defeat it completely before it could regain its strength. As she prepares to bring down her weapon, moves swiftly and positions himself between her and her target. She unintentionally grazed his cheek with her blade, drawing a slender streak of blood along his skin. A crimson droplet slipped from her fingertips, leaving a delicate stain as it fell. Archive regarded frugal merely as a phase from the past. At that instant, a soft radiance started to shine from the unicorn's horns. A gentle chime echoed, signaling to everyone present that a bond had just been established between Tin and the baby unicorn. A radiant glow envelops the group. The energy moved straight into Tin's thoughts. In a matter of moments, he gains full access to the detailed statistics of his newly bonded pet, their connection now sealed by the contract. At last, he realizes that the headmistress holds the key to resolving his troubles. The mother unicorn's actions had all been driven by a fierce desire to shield her young one from harm. He was completely unaware that forming a contract with the newborn was even possible. Once the connection has been established, the small unicorn vanishes from view, causing King to feel puzzled. She glances around the area, searching for the creature and wondering about its whereabouts. Without warning, a gentle, luminous aura envelops the mother unicorn. All around her, blossoms spring to life, transforming the earth beneath her into a tranquil garden. Archive couldn't hide his surprise when he heard the news, suddenly realizing that he had stumbled into an unexpected dilemma. The girls wasted no time and hurried to a secure spot, acting with determination and purpose. Tin lingers for a brief moment. He turns to the mother unicorn, offering her a gentle promise through his words and demeanor that he will watch over and safeguard her young one. The unicorn gradually begins to fade from sight. Beneath him, the earth began to break apart, yet he continued to sit, his eyes fixed on the glowing screen before him. The system announced his achievement, acknowledging his victory over the unicorn and his success in surpassing the previous record. At that moment, his status began to refresh to reflect his new accomplishment. His daughters called out to him, confused about his actions and questioning his intentions. Without warning, the earth splits open beneath them. He tumbled down the hill, his slime companion sliding beside him. The display comes into view. He wonders whether he should exit the dungeon. He decides to select the affirmative choice. A fresh supply of potent wine had arrived. The character vanished, only to materialize once more at the entrance. Approached him with concern etched across her face. She reached out and seized his shirt in frustration, but before she could say anything more, he urged her to settle down. Once he finishes getting everything ready, he gathers the drinks and heads off to reunite with Desire. A young man noticed group coming back and began to question whether they had managed to set a new record. The other guy insulted him by calling him foolish, insisting that if they had acted differently, they would have been thrown out, and there was no chance they could be the ones to set a new record. His anger flared at his remark, and she lunged forward, fist raised to strike, but her friends quickly intervened, holding her back and soothing her until she regained her composure. At that moment, Dong and his companions emerged from the portal, and excitement spread as people began to suspect that this group could be the ones to surpass the existing record. He discovers that she has a boyfriend before anyone else does. He takes pride in how effortlessly he can control Desire, viewing it as nothing more than an elderly woman longing for a man's notice. He notices Suki joining forces with him and wonders aloud what could make the most popular girl in school want to partner with someone like him, whom everyone considers a loser. His temper flaring, abruptly tells the other person to leave. Appeared insulted by her actions, thinking to himself that she was acting without any shame. As frustration built up, he prepared to say even more. Dong silences him. He shifted his gaze toward Tin, wanting to know how much distance Tin now noticed between the two of them. Tin gave a sly smile and suggested that he check to find out who was leading by such a wide margin. The updated rankings catch everyone's attention. Desire cast a spell that pulled both of them into its grasp. Ear's surroundings twisted into a complex maze, and in that moment, he gripped his ears tightly as the realization struck him. Only witches of legendary rank possessed the ability to cast such a spell. The spell formed a separate dimension, ensnaring its target within the newly created space. The other foolish boys begin to accept what has been said as true. One of the participants points out that this is the Black Abyss, making it clear that Tin Ho has no way to cheat here. Spun around, his face flushed with anger, demanding to know who would dare respond to him in such a bold manner. The person who arrived was revealed to be a member of the elite team's group. Despite the attack, her abilities as a witch allowed her to shield herself from the effects of the spell. Desire appeared noticeably more youthful within the labyrinth than she had outside its walls. Tin glanced at the stat screens and observed the details displayed there. Both siblings are identified by unique titles that appear beside their names. He starts to question the reason behind their arrival in this location. Members of esteemed families usually access the Black Abyss using special portals set aside for people of their status. In contrast to ordinary citizens, these individuals were seldom seen in the public plaza. Despite the occasional alliances formed between certain families and commoners, these siblings already belonged to an established and fully assembled team. Tin observed the group intently, puzzled by their unexpected appearance, particularly since they appeared so well-prepared and coordinated. Moved ahead and attempted to present himself too. She continues walking, completely ignoring him as if he isn't there. Yenfi's frustration grew as he raised his voice at her, blaming her for paying more attention to someone like Tin instead of Dong. He insisted loudly that she seemed unaware of the fact that Dong was actually a paladin. Faced his accuser, his voice steady as he remarked how unfortunate it was that a person of his character bore the name of paladin. Despite this, the blade quickly restored its shape because it was made with mercury. Dong swiftly stopped him from moving forward. Struggling to remain calm, Dong faced sway and expressed that he didn't mind if she underestimated him. Still, he pointed out that Tin amounted to nothing and must have relied on some sort of scheme to rise to the top. He turned his gaze toward Tin, remarking that luck had been on Tin's side for now, but cautioning that things would not go the same way in the future. With a determined tone, he vowed to make sure Tin learned his lesson next time. Dong and his companions eventually decided it was time to go, so they turned their backs and walked away from the place. Even after being reborn, nothing about him had changed. He reaches out his hand in a friendly gesture, surprising Tin, who starts to question whether their long journey was truly just to meet him. He extends his hand, offering a handshake. Without any sign of worry, he blocks the attack with complete confidence. She makes it clear that Tin was by her side. Ron's irritation was evident, though he managed to restrain his anger. Striving to remain calm, he explained that his conversation was with Tin and courteously requested that she move out of the way. King reached out and took hold of Tin's hand, leading him forward without hesitation. As she strode ahead, her gaze fixed straight ahead, she declared that would never claim Tin, insisting that they not linger on pointless words. Without warning, Kai emerged behind the group, her demeanor cold and uninterested in idle chatter. She quickly stated that their sole purpose for being there was to find Tin, making it obvious she didn't want to waste time on anything else. The audience gasped in disbelief, unable to hide their astonishment that the renowned guild would attempt to enlist someone from an ordinary background. Resolutely opposes the idea, fearing that Tin Ho's inclusion on the team would invalidate all of her hard work and achievements. Representing's team confidently announces their intention to take with them that day. Glanced in his direction, her voice barely above a whisper as she wondered aloud whether he truly intended to become part of their group. Had no chance to reply before something interrupted them. Replied with unwavering confidence, insisting that he would never have the courage to attempt such a thing. Approached with a steady demeanor, making it clear to her that she wasn't the one who could choose path. He proceeded to use the system to send a friend request to Tin. He revealed his identity as the Golden Saint Lion Knight and extended an invitation for him to become part of their group. Tin noticed a friend request pop up on his screen. King quickly rejected the proposal, firmly stating his refusal to become a part of their group. To her surprise, Tin went ahead and approved the friend request. Desire responded by insisting that her intentions were simply to assist Archive, and she urged him to stop behaving foolishly. Despite this, Archive considers it truly foolish to reveal all his knowledge to Desire only to end up losing his life afterward. Overwhelmed by shock, desperately begged Tin to refuse the invitation to join the team. He gives the impression of agreeing to their proposal through his words. Tin silently chooses the rejection option on his device, catching everyone off guard with his unexpected decision. Moved closer, wanting clarification about what had just been said. Tin states with composure that he remains open to joining their group, provided they accept several terms that he wishes to set. Appeared irritated as he pointed out that they were already offering him an opportunity to become a summoner on their team, and implied that he ought to appreciate their generosity. Despite the tension, remains calm and inquires about the terms being offered. Proceeded to outline 3 specific requests. Upon entering the Black Abyss, the group was required to obey his commands without hesitation. He made it clear that gaining experience points without his approval was strictly forbidden. Additionally, he claimed exclusive ownership over all treasures and items collected from defeated monsters. The audience is taken aback by his daring demands, instantly sensing that the Mew family is in desperate need of his assistance. Because of this, his requirements appear completely fair. Should they accept, they must obey every order from the summoner. However, if they decline, their hopes of advancing in the rankings will vanish. Several members of his team showed reluctance, making it obvious that they were unwilling to agree to the conditions set by Tin House. Observed with a sense of pride, he asserts that if the others are unwilling to agree to his terms, they are welcome to attempt climbing without his help. He disclosed the full story of how he ended his parents' lives, stepped forward, stopping them, and gently reminded everyone of the purpose that had brought them there. He states that, since Tin does not plan to join their group, there is no reason to create any problems. Tin-Ha stands his ground, expressing his strong dislike for teams that use their strength to dominate and control others. Feeling a surge of determination, pointed out that his rival's top rank in the Winter Abyss was only temporary. He cautioned him not to become overconfident, and suggested that any celebration should wait until the victory was truly secured. After that, the entire team pivots and exits together. As they moved further away, glanced back at Tin one final time, quietly resolving in her mind to handle matters with him on her own. Tin-Ha let his guard down and made up his mind to venture into the Black Abyss several additional times, determined to achieve level 10. Archive stared in disbelief, realizing that Desire had chosen not to support the humans. He overhears the girls, their anger practically boiling over. They claim he intended to abandon them all along, insisting he deceived them and led them to think he was simply someone without any compassion. Once the girls had taught him a lesson he wouldn't forget, they headed off to stock up on more supplies. Left behind, his face puffed up from the encounter. She had chosen to join forces with the humans during the previous war because of a specific reason. Unable to enter the abyss for now, he decides to wander the area in search of a peaceful place where he can relax. As he wandered through the forest, he realized that defeating the unicorn had earned him enough experience to advance to level 6. Because he has not witnessed the unicorn baby's abilities so far, he chooses to call it forth. A radiant ring materialized on the floor, casting a bright light that illuminated the surroundings. Once the brightness disappears, the unicorn was nowhere to be seen, leaving him puzzled and uncertain about what might have gone awry. He glanced at his device to see what was displayed. He notices a message on the screen, questioning whether he wishes to hatch his summon, and chooses to proceed by confirming his decision. Immediately afterward, a new message appeared on the screen, informing him that the hatching process would take 3 days. All he could do now was wait for the unicorn to emerge. He chooses to look over the prizes he received after overcoming the secret boss. As he unlocked the screen, his eyes caught a blinking male icon that signaled the arrival of a new message. Because Frugal appeared to have no vulnerabilities, Desire volunteered to share information with archives that could potentially be significant. He couldn't begin to guess what that title truly referred to. He decides to ignore it for the time being, believing that the gift pack is more important right now. 2 chests materialized before him, and as he lifted the lid of the first one, he discovers a piece of equipment labeled guard armor beside a tiny bottle filled with experience points. He appeared satisfied as he lifted the lid of the second chest. They come across a silver-grade ice necklace, along with a medium-sized experience vial and a medium healing potion. There are 9 different types of equipment, and silver ranks as the 3rd level among them. He couldn't believe his luck when his very first adventure chest revealed a silver-grade item. He put on the new items he had just acquired, making sure to wear both the necklace and the armor. A surge of strength and confidence washed over them right away. As he glanced at his stats screen, he observed a modest increase in his attributes. He still possessed 2 unused skill points. He spends the points to improve his already advanced abilities, advancing from the 2nd level to the 3rd level. The ability allowed him to shield his summoned creatures by temporarily increasing their attributes 2-fold for several seconds. Following that, he intends to use 100 HP points to enhance his slime's abilities. However, he unexpectedly spots a choice that Desire points out to Archive that his actions mirror those of Frugal. He grows intrigued, speculating that raising his slime's grade might reveal additional abilities. Despite this, he finds himself completely in the dark about what modifications might occur, since no explanation has been given. The answer could only be discovered by moving forward and seeing what happened. With a surge of courage, he selects the option to move forward, trusting in his decision. His health points remained exactly the same at 1100, showing no change at all. The number increased to 500. The slime in his possession began to emit a bright glow, shifting into an unusual form that left him utterly bewildered. Archive made his way back to the academy, only to come to the realization that his demon eyes had been pushed beyond their limits. Her eyes widened, and her mouth dropped open in astonishment. The girls made their way back to the entrance of the Black Abyss, but soon discovered that Tin was nowhere to be found. Taking a seat for a brief rest, proposes that they use the squad-level tracker to find out where he is. Following her suggestion, King accesses the interface. He realizes that he has ended up in the middle of a forest. She arches an eyebrow in puzzlement, uncertain why he might be present. Wasting no further moments, she makes up her mind to seek him out. His inner thoughts insist that the Demon Queen would never have wished for him to act that way. At the same time, Tin House remains motionless, stunned by disbelief. He gazed at his recently evolved slime, unable to believe what he was seeing. The entity now appeared as a breathtaking woman, whose alluring figure almost overwhelmed his ability to think clearly. He fought to control the thoughts swirling in his mind. Archive successfully returns to his own room. Luckily for him, Idley had been anticipating his arrival. This made it increasingly difficult for him to keep his emotions under control. Determined not to surrender, he rises swiftly, firmly assuring himself that he will not allow a summoned creature to sway his resolve. He unlocked his device and selected the icon that would let him browse through clothing options. She gathered a few simple outfits. She lifts the shirt from its place, yet chooses not to put it on. She draws the energy inward, allowing it to become part of her own being. The remnants of the sword and leash lay, hidden where Archive had once concealed them. He picks up the shirt once more. He assists her in adjusting it correctly. As he observes her in silence, he mutters under his breath that the situation makes him feel as though he has unexpectedly taken on the role of a stepfather. His concern had grown so intense that she had already reported Archive's illness to the Academy officials. She casually inquired if Archive had been harmed, her determination clear as she herself to confront anyone bold enough to lay a hand on her teacher. He is taken aback by what comes into view. She suddenly possesses 2 impressive new abilities. Her initial ability, Acidic Rain, allowed her to transform part of her own body into a miniature storm cloud that unleashed a downpour of potent acid, dissolving anything it landed on. Her other power, Demonic Embrace, enabled her to coil her tentacles tightly around her opponent. The creature's tentacles dripped with strong acid, allowing them to inflict significant harm while keeping their victim immobilized. Found it effortless to absorb the stories from the archives, her feelings for him making it all too simple. The group of girls continued moving through the forest, their minds filled with questions about what had drawn Tin Ho so deep into these woods. While walking by a tree, Cracker came to an abrupt halt, his movement ceasing entirely. she notices him deep in conversation with an attractive girl who has striking red hair. She exclaimed his name in surprise, immediately questioning his unexpected presence. Rather than responding directly, he nonchalantly redirects the inquiry, wanting to know why they have come to this place. Narrowed her eyes at him, wondering aloud whether they might be intruding on a private moment. Without pausing to hear a response, she marched over angrily and slapped him, furious at his inappropriate behavior. Once the commotion died down, he revealed that the girl with red hair was, in fact, his slime's evolved form. Frustrated, Sai Kung raised her arms in exasperation, accusing him of hiding the truth. Determined to get her way, she seizes Archive and pulls him with her into the lake, unwilling to accept a refusal. As Tin Hao brushed the dirt from his clothes, he nonchalantly wondered aloud what had prompted anyone to search for him in the first place. Inside the school dormitory, walked into Archive's room, determined to put an end to Archive. Rather than finding Archive waiting in his bed, he discovers a handwritten note that Archive has left behind for him. He swiftly brings up his display, where a message appears, inquiring whether he wishes to step into the abyss. Frugal stands in his battle armor, every weapon at the ready. Archive's letter to him contained a stern warning. He was to come alone, or idly would be put in danger. A different team had already arrived at the scene. This was the Lion Guild. They fought their way through endless masses of monsters, all the while anticipating the arrival of the sacred creature. Archive chooses to confront Frugal, prompting him to reflect on the ethical choices he made concerning his children. The group gradually becomes aware that something is amiss. It appeared that another person had gotten there first and taken the prize. Known for his inability to keep his cool, suddenly erupted in anger. She quickly concludes that a lone player connected to the faction is responsible for taking the creature. None of the other guilds possessed any fragments, so it was impossible for them to realize that the unicorn had woken up. He informs Frugal that he now possesses the seals he once received from his human parents. Ron agreed with her idea, observing unusual activity within the Black Abyss, and remarking that the divine beast had awoken sooner than anyone had anticipated. Responds by expressing his lack of concern regarding Archive's identity. Known for her impulsive nature, proposed eliminating every group that had managed to survive the abyss. She believed that only a few teams had made it out alive. She desperately longs to defeat Tin, making no effort to conceal her intense desire for violence. Insists that he has personally seen the terrifying destruction the Demon Queen is capable of causing. The group realized that anyone capable of defeating a divine beast possessed tremendous strength. He reminded everyone to stay alert and proceed with care. Despite everything, he couldn't shake the suspicion that might have been the one responsible. Ultimately, Ran instructs the group to head back to the guild, planning for everyone to gather and determine their course of action from there. He drove his sword down until its blade pierced the earth. A luminous magic circle formed under their feet, and moments later, everything was engulfed in a brilliant burst of light. They vanish from sight, and his companions reached the entrance of the dungeon, enveloped by the comforting heat of spell, which shielded them from the biting chill outside. With determination burning in her eyes, rushed forward, not pausing for even a moment. Frugal found Archive's explanation amusing, considering it a clever response. Eager to face the challenge once more, the character prepared to test their skills before the real battle began. As soon as she arrives at that spot, she transforms into her salon persona. A group of wolves suddenly emerged from the darkness and charged toward her. Tin found himself surprised as he observed the scene. 5 figures had appeared, each one displaying signs of just beginning, which struck him as strange. The situation felt wrong, and a sense of unease settled over him. King remains unshaken, showing no sign of hesitation. Protected by the layers of shields, she plunged straight into the heart of the turmoil. In less than 60 seconds, every member of the pack lies defeated. She holds herself upright, a confident smirk playing on her lips. She made it unmistakably obvious that anyone who challenged her would soon wish they hadn't. Her self-assurance wasn't just an act. The increase in her damage output was obvious, a direct result of her recent advancement in combat training. She flipped her hair over her shoulder and strode forward, not once glancing behind her, urging Tin Ho to move faster and stay by her side. He lingers for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the dark corners, a sense of discomfort lingering within him. There is something strange about this creature, and he is determined to figure out what lies ahead for them. They continued onward, putting more distance behind them. Tin gradually becomes aware that there is something unusual about the surroundings. Requested that continue providing her with supportive enhancements, allowing her to press on. However, Tin House intervenes, urging everyone to pause. His instincts are confirmed as the earth unexpectedly trembles. Snow shifts and stirs as something begins to emerge from below. Taunted Archive, pointing out that Archive's hesitation was starting to cloud his judgment. The group found themselves swiftly encircled, catching Tin off guard, as he had never expected an attack to unfold in such a manner. Frugal remained relentless, driving Archive backward with a series of forceful and unyielding strikes. Unlike typical zombies that charge forward without thought, these creatures advanced with unusual caution. They maintained a tight formation, their eyes scanning the area intently, as though they were carefully planning what to do next. Archive attempted to put some space between them, yet the effort proved ineffective. They barely retreat in time, narrowly avoiding danger. The unexpected assault leaves them visibly rattled, their expressions momentarily filled with fear. Despite the tension in the room, he remains motionless, standing out as the sole person who does not react. A confident grin gradually appears on his face, revealing that he had anticipated this moment all along. Deep down, he knows the story revolves around him. The creatures surrounded him, drawing nearer from all directions. He raises his hand in a composed manner. He called forth his demon slime, acting as though this was merely the beginning of his preparations. As the players gathered in the lobby of the Black Abyss, an uneasy sensation settled over the group. The earth starts to shake with a disturbing, rhythmic motion. Without warning, the portal burst open, releasing a flood of skeletons and wounded players who stumbled out in desperation. Showed no reaction, maintaining a calm demeanor as he provoked Archive, challenging him to put forth his greatest effort. The wounded man struggles to speak, attempting to warn that chaos has erupted in the dungeon. However, he collapses before he can complete his message. He takes his last breath in that very spot. A notification suddenly appeared on the screen, announcing that the player had died and was now being sent to the Hall of the Dead. The audience stared in shock and fear, understanding that this time not a single person had survived. All of the remaining players who had been inside had now lost their lives. She searches for the ideal angle that will give her an advantage over him. The screen revealed that the abyss's difficulty had been increased to nightmare, and the players instantly realized they stood no chance against such a formidable challenge. Frugal gathered his strength, readying himself to bring everything to a close. Meanwhile, Tin House casually called forth his slime, showing no signs of concern. He reached out lazily, issuing a menacing warning that he would harm her if Frugal dared to approach. Now all that was left were the giants and the kings of the wolves. Tin remains in place, a smug smirk playing on his lips, giving off the impression that he sees no danger in his surroundings. She has no choice but to turn to Archive for an explanation of the situation. Fear took hold of them, causing their bodies to shake uncontrollably. And their lips gleaming with gloss, stared in astonishment, unable to hide their amazement at the newfound strength Tin displayed. When the slime settled back onto his shoulders, Tin instructed the girls to keep their distance, his voice steady and composed. Without hesitation, they darted behind a large rock, following the order without question. Archive calmly reassured her of his true intentions, making it clear that he felt no genuine connection. He went on to confess that, from the very start, had simply been a means to an end for him. Tin stands upright, confronting the monsters with unwavering confidence, and dares them to attack him together. The Wolf Kings fell for the trap, rushing in from opposite sides. A Russian approached directly from the front. As one approached from the front, the other moved quietly to attack from the rear. Tin, showing no sign of hesitation, directs his slime creature to take care of the situation. She extended her tail, targeting her opponents with the intention of defeating them all at once. The wolves moved with surprising speed, skillfully leaping out of harm's way before the blow could land. With unexpected speed, the wolf and the giants moved around her, quickly closing in until they had him completely encircled. Tin wastes no time, immediately signaling his slime to shift into a defensive stance. She swiftly encased him in a dense, shielding barrier, just as the wolves charged forward without a moment's pause. The creature attacked the slime, using its teeth and claws in a desperate struggle. The individual suffered harm as a result of the substance's damaging properties. The impact was immediate, causing them to recoil a little. Despite facing resistance, the opponents persisted, refusing to fall back no matter what. At the same time, and observed the situation with the eager attention of spectators at a sports event. As the wolves' health began to decrease, the damage numbers appeared on the screen for everyone to see. Archive is well aware of Frugal's strength as an adversary, and realizes that relying on a single mirror will not be enough to defeat him. This causes concern to spread among the girls. Observing the momentum change, tightens her grip and prepares to enter the fight herself. She glanced at, urging her to continue using her healing powers. As she regained her balance, the girls noticed the giants starting to stir, their massive feet thudding against the ground as they advance with the determination of ancient titans, readying themselves to enter the fray. Tin's eyes became slits, his expression confirming that the situation unfolded just as he had predicted. The giants and the wolves appeared to be cooperating, displaying a level of teamwork that had not been seen before. Without warning, a brilliant light filled the area, and both of them heard's voice gently urging Idly to dry her tears. King swiftly seizes her arm, cautioning her that she isn't fit to engage in a fight right now. Frugal possessed a second demon eye, known as the reversal eye. As her anxiety grew, she scanned her surroundings and quickly slipped her hand into her pouch. The character reached into their belongings and retrieved a vitality elixir. The potion temporarily enhanced the drinker's strength and abilities for a full minute. However, when its influence wore off, any injuries sustained would feel twice as painful and damaging as before. Frugal explained that he had activated the reversal eye on the villagers, an action that seemed quite unusual. Once saw that all other tactics had failed, he maintained his composure and instructed his slime to bring an end to the struggle by unleashing her most powerful ability, Demonic Embrace. Without hesitation, she unleashes a surge of shadowy energy that erupts and spreads in all directions. The giants were pushed backward, struggling to regain their balance. The way they moved was completely in sync. Tin tightened his hands into fists. The slime surged ahead and seized one of the wolf kings effortlessly with just one hand. The creature's health slowly dwindles away, eventually causing it to crumble into nothing more than a heap of bones. A notification appeared on his system, letting him know he had won the battle and earned both experience points and rewards. Celebrated his first big win with enthusiasm, his excitement clear for everyone to see. Meanwhile, could only stare in shock, unable to believe that had defeated a level 10 Wolf King without relying on any weapons. The second Wolf King trembles uncontrollably, fear evident in his eyes as the recent events leave him deeply unsettled. Archive moves quickly, intercepting the attack and stopping it in its tracks. Frugal, overwhelmed by fury, forcefully hurls Archive aside. One of them seized him from behind. Because of this, his daughter possesses mana with a scarlet quality. The first giant started to spin at an incredible speed, grabbing hold of the second giant as they whirled together. Their combined motion formed a massive tornado, swirling with dangerous force and overwhelming power. Observes the situation intently and quickly understands that there is a threat. At this stage, beginner-level monsters were never meant to possess fused skills. To make matters worse, whenever monsters activated these fusion abilities, the sudden boost in their attack and defense stats left Tin at a clear disadvantage, as brute strength was no longer a viable path to victory. He remains motionless, unable to react or defend himself. The severity of the situation had escalated beyond their knowledge, leaving them oblivious to just how dire things had become. Archive also realizes that his actions toward Lise have consequences. The Demon Queen could not accept the sword, as it clashed with her deep belief in the power of family bond. Despite her efforts, a portion of her body brushes against the rapidly turning hammers. Instead of ending their existence, Lisa chose to offer them her love. A single additional blow would probably be enough to finish her off entirely. Upon witnessing the scene, Suki inhales slowly, then raises the elixir, bringing it closer to her mouth. Without pausing to think, she quickly lifts the drink to her lips and swallows it. She shifted into her impressive bear spirit form. An immense surge of energy erupted outward. For a brief moment, she resembles a bear girl powered up with a dazzling cyan energy. Even gazed in awe, her expression mirroring someone who had just witnessed, make a dramatic entrance onto the battlefield. At that moment, he spots the Demon Queen he cherishes standing far away. She eventually transforms into a cute white bear that closely resembles the character from We Bare Bears. Stood frozen, utterly overwhelmed by the abrupt transformation before him. The surprise overwhelms her to the point that she collapses unconscious immediately. Found herself taken aback, surprised that the elixir had completely transformed her into a bear. However, she swiftly regains her composure. However, his heart remains determined and refuses to surrender. Tin noticed her dash into the scene and instantly felt a surge of anxiety. Unfamiliar with the mysterious bear, he jumped to the conclusion that yet another formidable creature had entered the battle. He quickly signals for his slime to retreat and remain watchful. However, before anyone has a chance to respond, the bear swiftly covers the gap between itself and its target. She lifted her paw, poised to attack. Believing his final moments have arrived, closes his eyes and surrenders to what he thinks is his destiny, certain that his life is about to end. However, rather than launching an attack on him, nothing occurs. With a relaxed motion, the bear effortlessly brought her arm down, stopping the swirling tornado in its tracks with just one powerful strike. The merged giant staggered, caught off guard by the unexpected disturbance. To his astonishment, the bear began to talk, urging him not to linger and to chase after the giants instead. The moment the voice becomes recognizable, Tin's expression shifts to shock as understanding dawns on him. He suddenly sees that the figure before him is not a creature of nightmares, but Frugal, racked with agony, had no choice but to release idly. His mind raced with confusion and fear as he tried to understand how Archive could possibly wield the Demon Queen's eyes. Tin swiftly retreats and unleashes his ability known as Slime Demon Embrace. At the same moment, he doubted that the Demon Queen could come back to life using only 2 crystals. Suddenly, a realization struck him. None of them possessed the ability needed to release the shards belonging to the Demon Queen. She gazes at him, astonished, as the unexpected strength he reveals leaves her completely amazed. The giants, showing no signs of retreat, resumed their spinning, determined to create yet another powerful tornado. This time, however, Tin stands ready. Before they can fully accelerate, his tails, slick with slime, whip fiercely through the air. The slime coiled firmly around the whirling giants, its surface pulsing with streams of shadowy energy. Within seconds, the giants are consumed by flames, leaving nothing behind but smoldering remnants. Tin let out a long breath, his muscles loosening as he realized the battle was over. He glanced over at and offered her a warm, appreciative smile. He expressed his relief that she had arrived at the perfect moment, acknowledging that without her timely appearance, he would have been in serious trouble. As he approached her, his eyes carefully examined her uncovered figure, and he found himself questioning why she had kept this ability hidden until now. At that moment, his body began to shake uncontrollably. She checks her HP bar and is shocked to discover it has dropped dangerously low, leaving her with only 10 points remaining. Pain crashed into her chest, fierce and overwhelming, as if regret itself had struck her heart with the force of an attack. She let out a weary groan and slumped forward, her form momentarily illuminated by a soft, radiant glow. She shifted into her usual human appearance, an aura of strength mingling with a visible fragility. Seeing this, Tin hurried over, worry flooding his expression as he reached her side. He monitored her vital signs closely, his eyes fixed on the monitor as he noticed her health points had dropped to a critical level. It became clear to him that if she took another blow, she would be lost forever. Makes a solemn vow to prevent the painful events of the past from happening again. He carefully assists her in sipping the liquid, and its magic begins to work almost immediately. As her consciousness slowly returned, her organs began to heal and her condition became stable. As the dust settled, Frugal could be seen collapsed on his knees. The character came to a sudden stop, their eyes fluttering in surprise. At that moment, suddenly seized his daughter and used her as a shield, taking her hostage in a desperate move. His cheeks flushed a deep red, and a dramatic nosebleed burst forth, more intense than anything had ever experienced. King gradually becomes aware of her surroundings, and takes in the situation unfolding before her. As she noticed him gazing at her uncovered, gracefully shaped figure, a beauty untouched by enhancements, her eyes grew wide with surprise. Overcome with sudden embarrassment, she let out a startled gasp and quickly shielded herself from his view. Without hesitation, she struck him sharply across the face using harder than. Tin lost her balance and stepped backward. Using the eye of resonance, Archive reminisces about the joyful moments they have shared together. Although making such a statement only increased suspicion, for no man could ever claim complete innocence. She hurriedly dressed, straightening up with a fierce look in her eyes that could cut through steel. Her voice, cold and commanding, sent a shiver down his spine as she delivered a threat. Even while her cheeks remained flushed with embarrassment, she firmly cautioned him to keep silent about the recent incident. She warns him with deadly seriousness that if he dares to tell anyone, she will kill him right then and there. Terrified, Tin Ho immediately nods his head with such speed and force that it seems as if it could detach from his shoulders. She whirls around and marches forward in a burst of frustration. Before leaving, she fixed him with a final, intense stare. A cold shiver runs through his body, making him tense with fear. Realizing the seriousness of the warning, he swallows hard and pays close attention. She moved in the direction of his resting spot, while he trailed behind her at a short distance, his mind still reeling from the sting of the slap. They eventually arrive at. The person lay sprawled on the floor, deeply unconscious, resting peacefully and undisturbed by anything around them. Tin softly uttered's name in an attempt to rouse her from sleep. Idly confided in herself a desire to remain close to Archive, despite the fact that they had only recently joined forces to overcome her, and made efforts to soothe her nerves, telling her that she was now safe. They explained that the creatures had disappeared, and she no longer needed to worry about being attacked. Of course, jokingly hinted that she might still attract attention from some enthusiastic boys. The pair share a kiss, and as they rejoice over their victory, leaped up with excitement and flung herself into Tin's embrace. The sudden closeness made her chest press against him, causing his cheeks to turn bright red in embarrassment. Meanwhile, King observed the moment with growing annoyance, a visible twitch forming at the corner of her eye. She swiftly tugged Tin Howl aside and cleared her throat, reminding everyone that more important matters needed their attention, and urging the group to concentrate on their next steps. Tin steadied himself and addressed the pressing matter at hand. He pointed out that the dungeon had become more challenging, a change they had already noticed during their recent battle. Nodded in agreement, reflecting that the monsters had seemed far more challenging than what beginners would normally face. Struggling to steady her breathing, wonders aloud about what they should do next. Proposed that they withdraw for the time being, openly acknowledging that, given their present state, they would not be able to withstand another assault if it occurred. The girls showed their agreement by nodding, placing their trust in the choice he made. She fears that Archive's life may be cut short if he keeps relying on the Demon Queen's eyes. A cautionary notice pops up, stating that departing at this moment would cause a demolition penalty. Tin Ho, unfazed, quickly selects confirm, yet the action does not go through and the request is. Once more a notification appeared, and the display abruptly shifted to the main screen, boldly announcing that the present challenge was set to nightmare difficulty. The trio gazed at the scene before them, their faces etched with shock and astonishment. The archive warns her that remaining with him will eventually turn her into an enemy of humanity. His entire body shook with fear, her complexion turning ghostly white as anxiety overwhelmed her. Observing her distress would make anyone question what had convinced her that venturing into the abyss was ever a wise decision. Approached and offered calm reassurance, explaining that the dungeon was technically still considered beginner level. He believed that as long as everyone remained alert and relied on their training, they would be able to defeat the monsters inside. Tin senses that something is off. Even though the dungeon's rank remains exactly the same, the challenges inside have become much tougher. The difference just doesn't add up. Despite his confusion, he chooses not to overthink it for now. He recommended that they begin gaining experience as soon as possible, wary that more dangerous threats might be ahead. A sense of unease lingered within him, making it impossible to shake off the feeling that something was amiss. Archive felt a surge of emotion in response to his heartfelt words, and he promised her that he would stay close to her, offering his unwavering support. Tin reasoned that separating would allow them to earn experience points individually, which would help them level up more quickly. He also mentioned that he usually avoided fighting in groups, so following him wouldn't be very beneficial. Quietly acknowledges his reasoning with a slight nod, though a trace of discomfort remains in her expression. Accepting the situation, she walks alongside as they set out together. Strode boldly into the dim, shadow-filled forest unaccompanied. About 60 minutes passed. Tin stood confidently in an open space, the ground around him littered with the fallen forms of wolves he had overcome. Next to him, his slime companion hovered, its tails moving gently and unhurriedly through the air. A vivid notification appeared before him, announcing that he had achieved level 10. By now, he had every reason to feel confident, fully aware that his accomplishments justified his pride. He chooses to follow his conscience, and promises the girl that he will use his small healing magic to help her. Just as he is about to begin, the girl makes a move of her own. The girl gestured upward, directing his attention to something above them. Driven by curiosity, he accessed his system screen to review his advancement, yet an unusual sensation unsettled him. Despite advancing to level 10, he notices that his stats remain unchanged. As he scrolls down to view the unicorn egg, he sees that the hatching timer continues to move slowly. Archive examined the man closely and came to the conclusion that he was trustworthy. Feeling annoyed, he reaches for his well-worn book, silently wishing it might still contain some useful secrets. As he turned the pages, he spotted a potential answer hidden within the text. For a brief moment, a sense of relief settled over him. However, the feeling quickly faded away. Without warning, a piercing howl shattered the silence. Panic-filled screams echoed from afar. His injuries from the battle with Frugal were still in the process of mending, their presence plain to see. His two teammates dashed toward him in a frenzy, their movements filled with urgency. The moment resembled a slapstick routine, reminiscent of Momo and fleeing at the very sight of a monster. The scene was far from amusing. Barreling after them came a terrifying monster, gripping a giant, spiked club in its claws. Letting out an earth-shaking roar, the beast brought its weapon down with tremendous force, causing the ground to tremble from the impact. He had, to some extent, placed himself in a dangerous situation. Hurried over to assist her, but found that she was utterly exhausted, with every bit of her magical energy depleted. Enigma materialized suddenly, standing directly before him before he could even react. At the very moment it itself for another attack. Enigma gave Archive a sly smile, clearly amused by the poor choice Archive had made. She stretched out her tails and snatched, while he was still in the air. Shielding from the incoming attack, the figure positioned themselves protectively in front of her. Tin hurried toward King. Archive found himself completely bewildered. Pain contorted her features as she murmured that her left arm was numb and unresponsive, leaving it utterly motionless. He stood frozen, unable to respond before anything else could happen. The circumstances grew more dire as the earth began to shake beneath their feet, and an enormous shadow stretched across the group. The corpse commander emerged, fully revealed and looming above even the gigantic titan, exuding an eerie and oppressive energy that pressed heavily on all who witnessed it. Tin squinted, cautioning his injured teammates to remain alert, signaling that they were prepared to battle despite their battered condition. He observes the creature intently, noting that even though it is large and unsettling in appearance, its body structure bears a surprising resemblance to that of a human. Based on what his system indicated, the creature was just at level 10, and a radiant crystal throbbed at the heart of its chest, clearly marking its vulnerable spot. King, her strength nearly gone, struggled to raise her head and begged Tin to flee. She argued that he stood no chance against such a force. However, Tin refused her plea, shaking his head with determination and making it clear that running away was no longer possible. The creature had drawn dangerously near, leaving little room for escape. From the commander's form, a shadowy mist started to seep outward, quickly swallowing the entire battlefield in its darkness. This would be the first time in 14 years that he would eat a meal. The thought crossed their mind that, despite the intimidating warnings about the challenge ahead, if breaking the crystal was truly the solution, then what they faced was only the simplest stage. The commander let out a thunderous roar, signaling his minions to surge ahead in a frenzied attack. He considered possible ways to get answers from the girl. She dove into the crowd, overwhelming her opponents at once as her chorus of slime rendered them powerless. He proceeded to trigger several of her abilities in succession. One by one, the events unfolded, with the final one resulting in a division. Suddenly, the slime, producing several identical copies of itself. The figures dispersed across the battlefield, encircling the massive boss on every side. The character expressed their gratitude,